So people have been asking, hey, Matt, I'm approaching these businesses, but I'm industry agnostic. I'm not focusing on one specific industry. Is that good or is that bad? Well, I've been industry agnostic also in the past and still am somewhat today. Um, but according to the individuals I work with, I'm industry specific for them. So I would say the danger of being industry agnostic would be casting such a wide net is that you're catching a lot more fish. Um, but the process of going through the due diligence, the questions, following up, and people slipping through the cracks, if you don't have a system in place, could be more detriment to you and the process itself than it could be help in the long run. It's just about being consistent, talking to those people, going through that deal flow, and keep that going, right? Um, and so what we're here to do is to create deal flow, create value for those individuals, and then continue to move forward and be consistent with that, because the biggest issues isn't just a deal flow, it's the consistency of deal flow. And that consistency is it's difficult. It's a process. And if you're concentrating over here on the deal flow and you're working, and then you get the deal and you're concentrating on the deal, but the deal falls through, you got to start this whole process again of getting the deal flow going, and you're working it and everything, and it pops out a deal. You work on that. But a lot of these people are saying, how can I just work on these deals and you pop them out for me, Matt? And so that's kind of what we do, and that's what my team and I do for individuals, is we'll provide services of deal flow depending on what your needs are. And we would first do an analysis first to make sure that we can help provide that value for you in what it is that you're looking for. But after all is said and done, the goal is can we help provide value or not? And if so, great. And if not, where can we go, or where can we send you to where you could get that value, right? Can we recommend you to someone or send you in that right direction? So this whole thing of creating value is probably the most important aspect, whether it's with deals, if you're good with going through numbers, or you already have relationships. It's about bringing people together that have like interests or have synergies that we can collaborate on or collaborate with together to move forward and progress and help people accomplish their goals. And so with that being said, it really comes down to that. Now, how can you get excited about something like this, right? I'm a visual person. People spit out numbers and things like that, and it's like, cool. What does that mean for me? So, let me see here. I will pull up mi calculadora, calculator, and just kind of show you some numbers, right? So my very first deal that I did was with it was a deal site, and I actually had a past relationship with this individual, because he was selling his site and it was on a brokerage website. And this was a couple of years back, when I was first starting out and just dabbling into it, while I was working on, I was doing this on the side. And I was just dabbling into it and going to brokerage websites and things like that. And looked into it, looked in moving forward, did some due diligence. Then we ended up falling out and not doing anything with him. Anyways, I ended up following up with him because, after I stopped looking at brokerage websites and kind of came to my senses and said, hey, I need to look for off-market deals and everything, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the buyers first. Find the people that do have money or have teams and lenders and have done deals, and I'm just going to ask them what they want, and then I'll go out and find that, right? Versus finding deals and then going out. Because now I kind of do both, right? I'll do it from both aspects. I'll say, hey, I'll have the buyers, I'll know what they want, and I'll look for those. But if they don't want it, there's other buyers out there. There always are. And so we've been able to grow large enough that there's usually a taker out there if it's a deal worth having. And if it's not a deal worth having, we don't hang on to it. And so I found a buyer, and he's like, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And I was like, oh, I swear I've come across something like that, And it was this deal site from probably a year and a half before. And so, I'm searching in my email, trying to find, and finally, after maybe 5-10 minutes of searching, I come across the guy, and I'm like, there he is. So I reached out to him, said, hey, I let him know my situation. I contacted you before and all this stuff, but I think I have someone who might be interested in your business. And he's like, so I asked him first, are you still in the market? And he's like, well, we took it off the market, and we've just been kind of going along, growing the business and everything. And he said he'd be interested in speaking to this guy. And anyways, they were, and it ended up closing. But the business, how it worked out, and this is really what hooked me and got me going, is the business they bought for it was $740,000, right? Well, someone's calling me. That's not cool. Okay. So $740,000 is what they bought the business for, right? And my commission was a finder's fee, right? I don't have a brokerage license or a business license, or a business brokerage license or anything along those lines. So it'd just be they would just give me a finder's fee for a purchase price of the business. So I believe what I had got was a check for 5% of the company, so $37,000, and that was for an introduction. Okay, and that introduction, it wasn't due diligence. Okay, so I wasn't. I mean, I didn't even go through the numbers with the company. I just said, hey, I helped facilitate some phone calls. I helped, helped out with getting the financials of, the buyer saying, hey, this is what I need. Can you get those for me? Yeah, okay. And we had contracts signed, mutual agreements, things like that. And so there wasn't any reason why they wouldn't give it to me, really, at that point, right? If they're going to go into those contracts. And so really I was playing middleman, but I wasn't crossing that threshold of being a broker where I just connected those individuals. They gave each other their financials. They got on the phone and said, hey, what do you do? What are you looking for? This is what I do. And they said, hey, yeah, this might make sense moving forward. Can we come to some sort of agreement and whatnot? And emails, things like that. About 2.5 months later, they purchased the company. And so what I just showed you, I got paid out, but it was on the terms of the business. And so they did a seller finance over 3 months, and they paid them 50% up front. So I got a lump sum. So I got 50% of my 4%. And then they said, hey, we'll pay this much percent in the next month, and then in the third month we'll pay you the remainder of whatever's left over. And that was amazing, because it was like, whoa, I just got paid this much for, if I took those 2.5 months worth of work that I did. People are like, well, Matt, you were probably busting your butt for 2.5 months. It's like, no, I wasn't, because it was like a 20-minute call here, a couple text messages here, another 15-minute call, a 30-minute call, a 40-minute call, some text messages, emails. And it was just answering those, and it probably took less than 2 minutes to answer an email, right, after I read through it and everything and got the information they needed. So it really wasn't, it was just a lot of gathering and organizing and facilitating these people together to do what we did, and I didn't touch financials. I'm not making projections for them. I'm not doing due diligence for them. So I probably worked less. I probably worked less than 5. I'd say at least 6 hours, maybe even 5 on the deal, all put together, for that. And it's like, wow, that's a lot. That's not very much work for how much you got paid out. And it's like, well, it's not when you put it all together. But think about getting those payouts, and then have one here, and then be doing another deal here, and then a third here, and then a fourth. And so you have those working simultaneously, and it's 37,000 here, it's 20,000 here, it's 110,000 here, it's 87,000 here, and you're working those deals, and it might be 6, 12, 18, maybe a total of 24 hours of work over a span of 3 months with those deals, while you do some consulting or while you're bringing in more deal flow. It gives you time to bring in more deal flow. These are things that it becomes exciting. Every business is different, and that's what I love about it, and that's what keeps my attention. Is I'm not doing the same mundane thing every day, and that's what I hated about working, a 9 to 5. Is there are some things that I loved, but it just didn't give me the capacity. Even if I got all my work done, they're like, you got to stay here, because we're paying you. It's like, well, it doesn't make sense, okay? Because in my mind, it's like I want to be as efficient and as quick as possible to get to that next step, to be and keep it productive, right? And if I have more time, let me continue to do my other things. And this allows me to not only spend the time with my family and everything like that, but with work in that mindset of, okay, these are the hours I'm working, and I definitely can change that whenever I would like. When we're traveling, things like that, as long as I have an internet connection or cell service, I'm fine, right? But what it is it's being able to work with these individuals, and in the meantime, when there's downtime, is I'm bringing in more leads to fill this pipeline to work these individuals. Or I have individuals I've partnered with where I'm giving them and saying, hey, we're signing a contract that you're going to pay me that finder's fee, because they're doing the same thing, but they're going to pay me that same percentage. But what I actually do now is I take 5%, right? And someone else does it for me. And it's like 2 or 3 months. On the long end, it's been like 6 months. But usually it's at least 90's on the short end of something closing. But those things closing, it's like, okay, it's a matter of, it's a numbers game. It's a law of large numbers, so you're going through as many as possible and getting these things to close and matching them with the right people. So what people call me is they're like, hey, Matt, you're the deal maker. Okay, you're kind of the guy who's orchestrating, getting them to the right people, and that's where I like to be, and that's what I like. But kind of the question lately has been like, how do I mitigate that risk, right? Because once I give these off, yeah, we have agreements in place and everything, and if they close, great, and if they don't, not great. But how do I make sure that I get paid more likely than not when I'm giving out all these deals or doing them on my own, right? And so some cool things would be like consulting for equity. And when you do that and you do consulting for equity, you also have what is like a monthly retainer coming in to keep you on. And so it's like, hey, it's no contract. Pay me for the month. I'll work for the month. We might start out to do the first 3 months or first 2 months as a minimum, right? And let's say it's $1,500, $2,500, $3,500, $7,500 a month. What is your time worth, right? And so it's about figuring that out first, and then going out to these people, because there's people out there that definitely pay that, right? It's just they need to know that you're worth that, and so you need to find out what you're worth, and we can do another segment on what that actually looks like for you and your time. And so you can come to these companies that are looking to accomplish growth, don't actually want to sell, but it's like, okay, are you interested in a growth aspect of maybe bringing on a consultant that can help you grow your company, whether it's double or triple where you're at, just help provide value above and beyond what you currently created up to this point. You listen, right? And so some people are like, yes, I'd be interested, or what does that look like for me? Are you in the industry? And whether you're in the industry or not, yes, there's some relevancy there, but at the same time, you can help achieve growth without being in the industry, just being knowledgeable. I mean, it's as easy as going to the P&L and just saying, hey, where are your greatest expenses? And then how do we purchase that expense elsewhere through acquisition and bringing it into the company to bring that expense down, right? So if it's offshore, not offshoring, but if it's outsourcing the accounting for the company, or if you have supplies that you're buying and we want to go vertical in the supply chain and this company's here, and then you have the supply chain right here, or the supplier on the supply chain that's right here, and that makes up 25% of their COGS or of what they're bringing up into the company, the manufacturer, right? What they're bringing in, whether it's steel or wood or whatever that may be. It's like, okay, maybe that supplier is you're their biggest client, one of their biggest clients, and you've been working with them 12 plus years. And if you were not to be their client anymore, what would that do to their business, right? Now, we don't want to go in and stronghold people, but they call this like a pipe wrench deal. And so what you can do is you can go in, talk to these individuals and say, hey, we want to form some type of strategic partnership. Now, we don't want to say that we're taking our business elsewhere. However, this will ensure that you keep our business and we keep yours. So it's going to be mutual beneficial for both companies. And so we want to form some sort of strategic partnership where, let's say it's my company. I want to take some ownership in yours, and you to ensure that you keep our business, and that would ensure that you keep our business. And so there's different ways of going about it to kind of get into businesses, and it's what is called found money. It's money that's there that you don't know that's there. Go back to the P&Ls, the profit and loss statement, and find out what are the largest costs on that statement. Okay, what do those look like? Okay, and then figure out, okay, this is the cost. It's trash, it's shredding. Shredding the paper, because we go through so much paper in this company that we have 11% of our costs go to this company that comes in and shreds these personal documents that we have to have on file for at least 3 years. And then after it reaches that 3-year threshold, because we have so many clients, we have to bring in a special company that has to shred them, and they have to be certified and shredded and certify that it's been shredded, and we have to turn that in to the SEC or whatever. I'm just making this stuff up, but you get the idea. And so you could approach that company that goes around and shreds the paper and find out what their financials are first and foremost, and be like, hey, we are interested in a possible acquisition or a strategic partnership. You want to ensure that you keep business with us, and we'd like to ensure that you don't fall out on us. So maybe they're open to an acquisition, and if you do acquire them, great. And if it makes sense, you can take on their clients also, right, along with your own, and possibly shred for your competitors, different things along those lines, and that could be another revenue to the company. Or you could do a strategic partnership. So these are just some ideas of consulting of what you can do. There's a lot of what you can do for companies, and a lot of times these business owners aren't thinking about this just because they're in the business, they're in the trenches, and they're focused on growth, where they're not realizing that that growth can come through and is usually most effective through acquisition. I mean, these are all big companies, but you think of companies like Google, right? And you're like, man, these companies have monumental growth and they're growing. It's like, well, they've grown through acquisition. Okay, they acquire companies and they'll stamp Google brand on it, right? You have these translating apps and different services here. These were all created by other people. Now there are some of these that have been created in house through people that work for Google, but a lot of these have been acquired and they've grown in such a way. And I mean, it's the same thing with like IBM, or Microsoft. And so a lot of these companies grow through acquisition and they continue to get bigger and bigger, and they either keep the brand that it is or they'll slap their name on it. But we're just doing this at a lot smaller scale, with revenues between anywhere from a $5 million revenue company up to 50, sometimes more. And there's a couple companies we've worked with 100 million revenue, up there. I'm still getting there, right? But mostly within the five, I'd more safely say the 10 to 50 million revenue range is what we're working with. And anything below the 10, sometimes they're worth working with, but other times, sometimes you're squeezing so many different numbers, and there's not a lot with a potential LBO, a leverage buyout there, that we just kind of leave them alone, unless there's a buyer out there, private equity or family office that wants to scoop those people up. And in that case, awesome. We'll definitely pass those on, but working on those ourselves, we kind of just let alone because they're just not big enough. Unless they're open to some sort of equity, equity consulting. And so back to the equity consulting is you take a retainer, whatever you feel you're worth on a monthly basis, they pay you to keep yourself concentrated on them for a certain amount of time, and you can go through to help these people with growth, right? And then what you do is you don't have to say, hey, I'm going to take equity in the company, the sole company that they're in, but you can say any acquisitions we bring on, I would like to take 8% of the first million, 7% of the second million, and then 6% of the third, and so on and so forth, right? And so you get a certain percentage of equity in the company, but that equity that's built up, you say, hey, okay, I want 50% to be in equity of that acquisition that comes on, and I want the other 50% to be in cash. And that's a great way to mitigate your risk because you're getting paid monthly. Upon acquisition of another company coming on board, you get paid in equity of that company also. So you're a part owner in that company, and it could be a little smidge, anywhere from 10 to 20% equity in that company. And then half of that equity gets paid out to you in cash, right? So it's kind of appeasing both worlds, the kind of the best of both worlds on both sides of that, where it's like, hey, I'm getting my cash, getting some cash flow in, and then I'm taking equity in these companies for the long play, which is maybe you elect not to take any payments at all and just say, hey, I'll let this sit and I'll let it go. And then a couple of years down the road, when the growth gets there and they turn around and sell out, let's say I'm a 17% owner in the company, and I've been in on some board decisions, things like that, but 17% isn't anything. They'll ask me my opinion, but it's not going to be I'm going to make or break anything necessarily, right? But once they sell out, I get a check for 17% of that company. So, let's see here. Let's see. So let's say the company we went in and we helped, and this is more on the lower end, and then they, they're about $7 million, and they're like, okay, and then we sell for 15. Okay, so you have $15 million right there, and then you have a 7 times 17% return. There's 2.5. You get a check for that amount, and that's great. right? And that's on the larger end, but on the lower end, let's say it's 5%, 4%. That's still great, And so there's a lot of ways to do this. Consulting for equity is fun. It's awesome. It's a great way to mitigate your risk and to really help out yourself in getting the cash flow that you need, depending on your situation, and then also doing that long play. But you're getting into this with no money down, right? You're getting into these deals surely by helping these companies find money, okay, and helping them move forward. And you're bringing deals through. This is the value you're creating. You're bringing deals of individuals that do want to talk to them, and you can help leverage that company that you're consulting for. You can help leverage their buying power, with their credit history and things like that. There's tools to do all of this, to buy this other company. And so you're just becoming a deal maker, right? And that's really what it is, because what overhead do you have? Okay? What overhead do you have that you wouldn't already have if you weren't doing this business? Okay, you have internet, you have your lights. I work from home, right? I'll go to these sites of these businesses. I travel. But that's more just to keep up relationships with individuals, to get to know each other, so we can have this bond and this trust, and actually be able to work together, and have these synergies, and not be questioning everything that the other person's saying or doing. So it's fun, it's exciting, and it's different, and it's really very rewarding. And so in this market that's going on right now, it's great. It is great. It's sad to see that our government pays people enough money to stay home and not work, and I know there's a lot more issues out there than that, and but this is something where you can grab it by the horns and run with it, and do on your own, to a certain extent, but you definitely want to network and bring in the right resources and have the right people in your corner to help you out. It's better to have partners than to go at it alone. It's more efficient. You can get things done, and help get that other outside perspective. But remember, find out your superpower. Stay in that lane, swim in that lane. Don't teeter too much of the shiny object syndrome, where you're looking at something else that's going to scare you away. Kind of stay in your lane, keep at it, and everything will work out. It's the consistency. So it's preparedness and the right opportunity crossing at that moment that you'll be able to act and be able to come out on top because of that. So there's no such thing as luck. That really is what the definition of luck, which is being prepared and an opportunity presenting itself and being able to take advantage of that moment. And so remember, as we've spoken about in the past, deal flow or you're dead, right? So you need deal flow. You need to talk to business owners. You're not going to find out which ones are interested if you're not reaching out and asking. So just ask, okay? Ask the business owner if they're interested in a strategic partnership and or an acquisition. And if so, when would be the best time to speak? Punto. Okay, question mark. Okay? And then you can move forward from there. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you have other ideas, things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked, we'd love to know. Comment below, let us know, and give us your story. How have your calls gone with business owners? Do you feel you're good on the phone? Do you need help on the phone? Are you getting good deal flow, or do you need deal flow? Do you know where to look? We're here to help out in any way possible, and we want to move forward and collaborating together. So remember, without deal flow, you're dead. But we're here to help try and fix that issue here. But until next time, happy hunting.